When the river cried, the villagers knew something sacred had been stolen. The sound wasn't just water, it was grief. Some said it was the spirit of a mother searching for her baby. Others whispered that someone had angered the queen beneath the waves. But no one knew the truth, not yet. Long before the cries began, there lived a woman named Amara, whose name once carried joy through every corner of the village. She was the kind of woman the elders spoke of with pride, a rare beauty, soft-spoken yet full of light. Her smile could calm tempers, and her laughter had a way of making people forget their worries. Mothers used to point her out to their sons, saying, "That one, marry her, and the gods will favor your home." And indeed, they did, or so it seemed. When Chike, the proud son of the village chief, asked for her hand, her parents wept tears of gratitude. Their wedding was a celebration that echoed through generations. Drums thundered under the moonlight, dancers moved like waves on water, and the air smelled of palm wine and roasted yam. Amara's joy overflowed. The world for a time was perfect, but perfection never lasts. Months turned to years, and her womb stayed silent. At first, Chike comforted her, brushing away her tears, saying children came in their season. But soon his patience began to fade. His words, once sweet, turned sharp. He stopped sleeping beside her. He started staying longer in the market, laughing with other women. And one day, Amara's worst fear came true. He returned home with another woman. She was young, round-faced, with eyes like rain clouds and laughter that filled the compound. Her belly already carried Chike's child. Amara stood frozen at the doorway as he spoke, not to her but to the air. "A man must have children. You leave me no choice." That night, Amara didn't cry. She simply sat in the darkness, her heart hollow, her body cold. From that moment, she became invisible. The villagers stopped mentioning her name. Even the other wives treated her like a ghost moving through the compound. She cooked, cleaned, fetched water before dawn, but no one spoke to her, not even to say thank you. Still, she prayed. Every night she knelt beside her mat, whispering to the gods of the river, the forest, and the ancestors, begging for a child to call her own. Sometimes she wondered if they heard her at all. Then one night, when the stars shimmered faintly and even the crickets refused to sing, the river answered. It was her turn to cook the next morning, so she rose before everyone else. The world was still wrapped in darkness. Her only light was the faint glow of the moon reflecting off the clay pot she carried on her head. The path to the river was cold and silent. Not even the frogs dared croak. When she reached the water's edge, something felt wrong. The air was too still. The river, usually humming with life, looked like glass. She hesitated, bending to fill her pot, and that's when she heard it. A sound, soft, weak, like a baby crying far away. She froze. Her eyes darted around the empty riverbank. Nothing but shadows. She waited. Then the sound came again, clearer this time, desperate, pleading. Her heart thumped. Maybe she was imagining things. She dipped her pot into the water, shaking her head. But then, as she lifted it, the crying grew louder. It was coming from inside the pot. Amara's breath caught. She set it down quickly and leaned closer. What she saw made her step back in shock. Inside the pot, floating on the surface, was a tiny baby girl. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight. Her eyes were half closed, and her little hands reached upward as though begging to be held. But below her waist, there were no legs. Instead, a small silver tail glittering like scales of light. A mermaid child. For a long time, Amara simply stared, her mind blank. Then something deep within her, a mother's instinct she never knew she had, moved her forward. She reached into the pot and lifted the child gently. The baby stopped crying at once. Her tiny body was warm, her face soft against Amara's neck. A strange calm filled the air. Amara whispered, her voice trembling, "Don't cry, my child, you're safe now. I'll take care of you." In that moment, for the first time in years, her arms weren't empty. Her heart wasn't hollow. She wrapped the baby in her scarf and hurried home, her steps light, her breath uneven. She didn't notice the faint ripples spreading behind her on the river's surface, or the soft glow rising beneath the water, like eyes watching her. When she reached her hut, she laid the baby on a folded cloth. The child cooed softly, her tiny silver tail glimmering in the dim light. Amara sat beside her, tears running down her cheeks. She whispered again and again, "You're mine now, my little one." By dawn, the others were awake. The household was noisy again, full of voices and laughter that didn't include her. But Amara didn't care. She cooked faster than ever, humming softly to herself. Her heart was light. Every time she returned to her hut, the baby greeted her with that gentle, gurgling laugh. For days, Amara kept her secret. She hid the mermaid child whenever someone approached, pretending to rest or fetch water. The baby never cried, only smiled, only laughed, as though she knew she was safe. But at night, the world began to change. The river stopped flowing. The next morning, the villagers gathered in confusion. The great river that had never dried, not even in the fiercest heat, now lay cracked and still. Women wailed in disbelief. Men shouted prayers, pleading for rain. And from deep within the silence came a distant sound, the cry of a woman echoing through the night. A cry that grew louder each day. Even Amara heard it in her dreams, a tall, glowing figure standing in dark waters. Eyes burning with fury, a voice like thunder whispering, "Return, my child, or face the river's wrath." For nights on end, Amara barely slept. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the same vision, the river queen, her long hair flowing like dark water, her voice echoing through Amara's bones. "Return, my child, before the land forgets rain." Amara would wake with her heart pounding, her clothes soaked with sweat, the baby mermaid still fast asleep beside her. The child never cried. She only giggled softly, her silver tail glimmering in the moonlight. Somehow that sound calmed Amara. It reminded her of something she hadn't felt in years, peace. But outside, the world was changing. The riverbed was bone dry now, its cracked surface glinting under the sun. Fish lay lifeless in the mud. The women had to walk for hours to find water. Children cried from thirst. And every night the same haunting cry echoed through the air, chilling even the bravest men. By the fourth night, fear gripped the entire village. Whispers spread like smoke. "Someone has angered the spirits. The River Queen mourns her lost child. They say whoever took her baby will die when the moon turns red." Amara said nothing. She couldn't. How could she tell them she was the reason their land was dying? Each time the baby laughed in her arms, guilt and love fought inside her like fire and water. But as the drought worsened, the villagers grew desperate. On the fifth morning, the village head summoned everyone to the square. His voice was heavy with fear. "The river no longer blesses us. The gods are angry. We will call upon the seer to reveal the cause." The crowd parted as the seer approached, a frail old man draped in white cloth, his eyes milky and distant. He leaned on his staff, muttering prayers under his breath. When he reached the center of the square, the air grew still. He struck his staff against the earth once, twice, 3 times. The sound echoed like thunder. Then, in a trembling voice, he began to chant, words older than the village itself. The wind picked up, dust swirled. The villagers fell silent, then he stopped. His eyes snapped open, glowing faintly. His voice boomed across the square. "The river mother is in mourning. One among you has taken her child. Until the child is returned, this land shall know no peace." A gasp swept through the crowd. Mothers clutched their children. Men exchanged fearful glances. The village head shouted, "Whoever has done this, come forward now. Return what belongs to the river, or the spirits will consume us all." But no one moved. Amara stood among them, her hands trembling, her throat dry. The baby's laughter echoed faintly in her memory. She wanted to speak, to confess, but her fear chained her tongue. If they knew, they would kill her. And worse, they would harm the child she loved, so she kept silent, and that silence cursed her even more. That night the guards began searching every hut. They turned over mats, lifted pots, and looked under sleeping mats. Amara knew they would soon come to hers. Panic filled her chest. She sat on her mat, the baby wrapped tightly in cloth, whispering through tears. "What do I do, my little one? If they find you, they'll take you away. But if I keep you, the river may destroy us all." The baby looked up, blinking her bright silver eyes, and giggled softly. That small sound broke her heart. For a moment, she forgot about fear. She only saw the innocence of a child who knew nothing of curses or queens. But outside, the sound of approaching footsteps reminded her that love wasn't enough to protect them. She blew out her oil lamp and held her breath. The guards stopped at her doorway. "Open this door," one barked. Amara whispered a prayer and clutched the baby tighter. But then, as if by some miracle, thunder cracked in the sky. The guards hesitated, muttering about bad omens. "Leave this one for last," one said. "The River Queen might strike anyone who disturbs her chosen." And just like that, they moved on. Amara exhaled shakily, tears streaming down her face. The baby stirred in her arms, her silver tail brushing against Amara's skin like cool water. For the first time, she understood this child was not hers to keep. But giving her up would mean tearing her soul apart. Still, the dreams didn't stop. Every night the River Queen appeared, her voice louder, angrier. The sky turned blood-red in Amara's sleep, and the Queen's eyes burned like fire. "You took my child," she thundered, "and now your people suffer. Return her, or the land will die with you." When Amara woke, her hut was cold, her body trembling. She could hear the wails of the villagers outside. crops failing, children fainting, livestock dying one after another. The whole village was drowning in despair. One evening, as she sat by the small fire, her husband Chike stormed into the hut. His eyes were bloodshot. "The gods are punishing us, Amara," he spat. "You must know something. You always wander at night. What have you done?" Amara shook her head silently. But her fear betrayed her. He saw it in her eyes. He grabbed her by the wrist, his grip rough. "If you've offended the river, you'll bring ruin to us all." He threw her hand aside and left, slamming the door. That night, Amara knew she couldn't wait any longer. The River Queen's voice haunted her even when awake now, soft but unrelenting. "Return, my child, and you shall find what you have lost." Her decision came quietly, painfully. She sat beside the sleeping baby, her heart torn in two. "My precious one," she whispered, stroking the child's silver hair, "you've given me joy I thought I'd never feel again. But I can't keep you, not if it means destroying everyone I love." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She kissed the baby's forehead and wrapped her in her finest wrapper, the same cloth she had worn on her wedding day. "Forgive me," she murmured, "but I must return you to where you belong." When midnight came, Amara stepped out into the cold, carrying the bundle close to her chest. The moon hung low and red over the dry riverbed. Each step felt heavier than the last. The silence was deep, broken only by the distant cries of night birds. As she neared the river's edge, she felt it, a pulse under the earth, faint at first, then stronger. The air thickened. The ground shimmered faintly, and suddenly the cracked riverbed began to glow. The River Queen was coming. The ground trembled softly beneath Amara's feet. The air shimmered as though the moon itself had descended to earth. She stood at the edge of the river's bones. What used to be flowing water was now a hollow bed of dust and silence. But as she clutched the wrapped bundle tighter to her chest, the world began to stir. A faint sound rippled through the still air, a hum low and ancient. Then a soft blue light emerged from the cracks in the ground, spreading like veins of water beneath her feet. The dry earth glowed, pulsing gently. Amara fell to her knees, breath catching in her throat. And then she saw her. From the heart of the glow rose a figure taller than any mortal woman, her body woven from water and light. Her hair flowed like black rivers in the wind, her eyes gleamed like molten silver. Around her the air smelled of rain after drought, cool, clean, alive. The River Queen had come. "Who dares disturb my slumber?" Her voice rolled through the night like distant thunder. Amara bowed her head low, her hands trembling. "Forgive me, O Mother of the Waters," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I am the one who took your child. I meant no harm." The Queen's gaze fixed on her, sharp yet sorrowful. "You stole what was mine, mortal. Do you know how the earth wept when she vanished from my arms? How the rivers ran dry with grief?" Tears streamed down Amara's cheeks. "I did not know she was yours," she pleaded. "I only heard her cry. She looked so helpless, I could not leave her there to die. I am a woman with no child, no joy. I thought," her voice broke, "I thought the gods had finally remembered me." For a long moment, silence hung heavy between them. The night held its breath. Then the Queen moved closer. Her presence filled the air with a gentle mist. "You cared for her," she said softly, her tone no longer filled with anger but curiosity. "You fed her, sang to her, kept her warm." Her eyes glowed brighter. "You loved her as if she were your own." Amara nodded slowly, clutching the bundle tighter. "She was my light in the darkness," she whispered, "but I cannot keep what belongs to the gods. I came to return her." The River Queen's gaze softened. "Rise, Amara of the earth," she said. "Show me the child." Hands shaking, Amara stood. With trembling fingers, she untied the cloth and revealed the sleeping baby within. The mermaid child stirred, her tail glinting under the moonlight. For a moment, her small eyes fluttered open, and when she saw the River Queen, she smiled. A sound like a sigh of relief passed through the night. The Queen's hands, translucent as water, reached out and lifted her daughter gently. She looked down at the child, tears shimmering like pearls in her eyes. "My beloved one," she murmured, "you have been tended with kindness. The mortal heart that sheltered you is pure." Then she looked back at Amara. "You took what was mine, yet your heart was not greedy. You gave love where there was only emptiness. The river does not forget such kindness." Amara's knees weakened. "Please, mother," she said, her voice trembling, "do not harm me, do not punish my people. I have done wrong, but I meant no evil." The River Queen smiled faintly. "There will be no punishment, only balance." She stretched her arms wide, and the river responded. The ground began to rumble. Cracks filled with light and sound. Water burst forth, gushing and swirling, rushing around Amara's feet. It was cold, clear, alive again. The dry riverbed transformed before her eyes, glowing like liquid silver. the air filled with the sound of waves and whispers of joy from the spirits. Amara gasped, stepping back as the river rose around her ankles, then her knees. But she wasn't afraid. For the first time in months, the world felt right again. The River Queen looked down at her, her expression calm but powerful. "You have returned my child," she said, "and restored peace to your land. The waters will bless you for this act." She leaned closer, her voice lowering to a soft whisper. "Go home, Amara, rest. The river remembers kindness, and it will return it in its own way." Before Amara could reply, a bright light enveloped her. The queen and her daughter shimmered, their forms blending into the rushing water. The baby let out one last soft laugh, the same sweet laugh Amara had grown to love. Then they sank beneath the waves, their glow fading into the depths. For a long while, Amara stood there, trembling. Her hands felt empty, her heart hollow. But as the river flowed around her, she began to laugh through her tears. The sound mixed with the rushing current, a melody of sorrow and gratitude. The drought had ended. By dawn, the entire village gathered at the riverbank. When they saw water again flowing strong and clear, they fell to their knees in awe. Women dipped their pots into the cool stream, men splashed their faces, and children screamed with joy, running barefoot through the shallows. "The river has returned," they cried. "The gods have forgiven us." No one knew what Amara had done that night. She stood quietly apart from them, her wet wrapper clinging to her legs, her hair dripping. The others danced and shouted, praising the gods. But Amara just watched the current glisten in the morning light. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Thank you for letting me love her even for a little while." That night, for the first time in months, the village slept peacefully. The haunting cries that once echoed in the dark were gone. The air was cool, sweet, and alive again. But Amara's hut was silent. She sat by her mat, staring into the darkness, her arms aching with emptiness. The sound of water outside was comforting, yet every ripple reminded her of the child she had returned. Sometimes she swore she could still hear a faint giggle carried by the wind, as if the baby was saying good night from beneath the waves. Days passed. The river remained full and strong, the fields began to bloom again, and laughter returned to the village. Yet inside, Amara carried a quiet ache, a hole that no prayer could fill. Until one morning something changed. She woke feeling strange. Her body was heavy, her hands trembling. When she tried to rise, the room swayed. A deep warmth pulsed through her belly. Fear gripped her first, then confusion. She hadn't eaten much, hadn't slept well, hadn't even dreamed. Chike found her lying weak on her mat. For the first time in years, worry flickered in his eyes. "Amara," he said softly, shaking her shoulder. "What's wrong?" She could barely answer. He called for the herbalist immediately. The old woman came, her arms filled with herbs and charm bundles. She sat beside Amara, pressed a cool hand to her forehead, and closed her eyes. After a moment, she smiled, a rare, knowing smile. "There is nothing wrong with you, my daughter," she said quietly. "You carry life. The river has remembered you." Amara blinked, dazed. What do you mean?" The herbalist's voice trembled with joy. "You are with child Amara, too, in fact, twins." Amara stared at her, uncomprehending. Then tears filled her eyes, warm, unstoppable tears. The words slipped out as a whisper. "The river kept its promise." Word spread through the village like wildfire. Amara, the barren wife, the woman everyone pitied, the one they whispered was cursed, was finally with child. At first, no one believed it, but when the herbalist herself confirmed the news, the whispers turned into awe. "The gods have remembered her," the elders said. "The river has forgiven," others murmured. Some even bowed their heads as she walked past, afraid to meet her gaze, as if she carried the blessings of something divine. For the first time in years, Amara walked with her head high. Her steps were slow but proud, her hands resting gently on her growing belly. Each morning, she thanked the river before dawn, standing barefoot in the cool shallows. The water seemed to move differently around her, like it recognized her. Sometimes she swore she could feel a soft pulse in the current, the same rhythm as her heartbeat. Months passed, and the once barren woman bloomed like springtime itself. The drought was long forgotten. The land was green again, and laughter filled every courtyard. Even Chike, who once turned away from her in shame, now looked at her with awe. He built her a new hut near the river's edge and began speaking softly again, as though the years of coldness had never existed. But Amara had changed too deeply to ever be the same. She didn't seek his love anymore. She had found something greater, peace. When her time finally came, the night was heavy with rain. Thunder rumbled far away, echoing like a drumbeat of the gods. Inside her hut, Amara gripped the edge of her mat, pain coursing through her body, tears and laughter mixing on her face. The midwives worked swiftly, their voices rising in prayer. And then 2 cries pierced the storm. A boy and a girl, twins. The boy's skin shimmered faintly in the firelight while the girl's eyes glowed with a soft glint like sunlight reflecting off water. The midwives gasped. One whispered, "These are no ordinary children." But Amara already knew. She held them close, her heart overflowing. The warmth of their tiny bodies filled the emptiness she had carried for years. Her tears fell freely as she whispered, "You kept your promise, River Mother, you remembered me." The storm outside quieted. Rain turned gentle, like the sky itself was blessing the moment. The next morning, when the villagers gathered to see the newborns, they couldn't stop staring. The twins were radiant, healthy, strong, and beautiful beyond words. From that day, the story of Amara spread beyond her village. Travelers came to see the woman who had once angered the river but later received its greatest gift. The elders would tell it to children as a lesson whispered by the waters themselves. The river never forgets kindness. Life slowly settled into harmony again. The fields flourished, the river flowed clear, and the air was sweet with abundance. Amara's hut became a place of laughter, the cries of her twins echoing joy through every dawn. Chike, once proud and distant, now stayed close, humbled by the miracle he could not explain. And yet every now and then, Amara would walk to the river alone at night. She would stand at the water's edge, her reflection rippling under the moonlight. The river glowed faintly as though alive, and sometimes, just sometimes, she would see a faint shimmer in the water, like a tail flicking beneath the surface. She would smile softly and whisper, "Thank you for teaching me that love and loss can live in the same heart." Her twins grew quickly, bright and full of life. The girl loved the water, always drawn to the river, splashing and laughing in ways that reminded Amara of that tiny silver child she once held. The boy, calm and wise beyond his years, often watched the current with quiet eyes, saying things no child should know, things about dreams of deep waters and voices calling his name. Sometimes, when both of them played near the river, a cool breeze would pass, carrying a soft laugh, the laugh of a baby Amara once knew. And she would feel the same peace wash over her that she'd felt that night when she returned the child. The villagers began to believe the twins were touched by the river spirits. They grew strong, fair, and kind. When they smiled, it was said even the waters rippled with joy. And in time, people no longer spoke of Amara with pity but with reverence. She had become the symbol of patience, faith, and divine reward, the woman who gave back what was never hers to keep and was blessed beyond measure. Years passed. Seasons changed. The river flowed endlessly. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Amara sat by the bank watching her children chase fireflies. The sound of the river whispered gently beside her. It felt almost alive, as if breathing. She closed her eyes, whispering softly, "Mother of waters, I never forgot you." The wind stirred, brushing her hair like a caress. And in the water, the faint shimmer of silver light glowed briefly, just once as though smiling back. She smiled too, tears glistening in her eyes. Her story was no longer one of sorrow, but of faith. A barren woman had once taken a child that wasn't hers, and in returning that child, she found her destiny. Because, as the elders say, the river does not forget the hand that gives back gently.